to the theme of this conference. So before the presentation begin, allow me to introduce the presenters of this session. And please let me check the presence of the presenters in this room. So our first presenter is Martella Rivera Roidatus and Dian Kurniawati Imron from Ministry of Village Development of Disadvantaged Regions and Transmigration Indonesia. Are you already here, Ibu Martella or Ibu Dian?
Yes,
Are you already here? Ibu Martella?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Ibu Martella. So our second presenter is Retno Hanani and Yuliana Kristanto from Universitas Diponegoro Semarang. Are you also already here in the Zoom, Ibu Retno?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Thank you, Ibu Retno. Our third presenter is Yoga Hendra from Universitas Negeri Yogyakarta. Where are you, Pak Yoga?
Yes,
are you ready?
I'm here. Yes,
okay,
I'm
thank
ready.
you, Pak Yoga. Our fourth presenter is Dr. Nimade Ariwidyastini from Universitas Pendidikan Ganesha. Are you already here, Ibu?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Our last but definitely not least presenter is Dr. Ana Belén Terrianes Bermudez from the University Institute General Gutierrez Mellado United, Madrid, Spain. Are you ready, Dr. Ana?
I'm here. Yes.
Okay, what time at the moment in the Spain?
5 o'clock.
Oh,
I am.
It's very early morning.
Yes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to welcome our first presenter, Ibu Martella Rivera Roidatus from Ministry of Village Development of Disadvantaged Regions and Transmigration Indonesia. She will deliver a presentation entitled COVID-19 Responsive Village, Why Including Persons with Disability Matters. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ibu Martella Rivera Roidatus. The time is yours, Ibu Martella.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear my voice clearly?
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Ibu, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Should I? Okay. Okay, this is our research. Today, I'm going to present the paper by myself because my partner have another agenda and it is really urgent. So forgive us. The title is COVID-19 Responsive Village, Why Including Persons with Disabilities Matters. Next. Okay. So this is the introductions of our research that the COVID-19 pandemic had a profound impact on persons with disabilities. WHO revealed that the innermost risk of being exposed to COVID-19 for persons with disabilities related to congenital medical conditions, barriers to implementing health protocols, and access to various disabilities. So we have for at least 37.1 million persons with disabilities, according to a statistic agency in Indonesia in 2018. And persons with disabilities are highly risked during the COVID-19 pandemic. The law number 8 of 2016 concerning persons with disabilities, particularly Article 20 and 109, states that persons with disabilities have right for safety and security in disaster situation. Also, the law number 6 of 2014 concerning village, especially Article 20 on local village authority and Article 24 on the principle diversity and participation, already mentioned about the importance of village government to tackling out the persons with disabilities in crisis situation. And the second one, the uncertainty of quality sanitation in the village caused the difficult to practice standardized health protocols for persons with disabilities. The specific disabilities have different accommodations, such as intellectual disabilities need a companion for daily life and therapy. Blind people rely on the touch in their activity, and deaf people require a sign language interpreter for information accessibility. Thus, village government generally have less understanding about persons with disabilities. The impact of this cause of reasons is the persons with disabilities are neglected from the government criteria to receive any assistance program. So this study aims to identify the reason why including persons with disabilities matters and analyze how rural village implement inclusive development. Next. So we use at least 2 literature review in our research. The first one is Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction that conveys 7 targets and 4 priorities. It states that persons with disabilities and their organization plays critical roles in designing and implementing plans for disaster risk program with a universal approach. And the second one is the concept of inclusive development that appears as significant action for the government and stakeholders. So the paradigm here is shifting from a charity-based to human right-based, and inclusive development encourage different groups' appreciation to make a positive contribution to village development. Next. The methods here is mixed method. The first one is the quantitative aspect that aims to identify aspect on inclusive village development. The qualitative itself explores the approach of village in doing inclusive development during the pandemic. So the sample included 30 villages from 5 regions in Indonesia, namely Sukoharjo, Bantul, Kulon Progo, Situbondo, and Bulukumba. And we collaborate with village government and for at least 8 disabled people organizations in that regions. Next. So here's the result. We look at the one of the program delivered by the Ministry of Village called COVID-19 Responsive Village, which position village as a subject to manage the prevention and address the impact of the pandemic in the village. Minister of Village Regulations number 8 of 2020 concerning priority in using village funds assign a task force institution to both village volunteers and local government to do kind of action. The government has several schemes to support the village community itself. For instance, the social safety net, the unemployment assistance, and also the food subsidy. However, the various programs haven't reached thoroughly by the persons with disabilities in the village. The situation shows that the issues of persons with disabilities have to correspond with the local governance and development. This is our starting point to analyze why including persons with disabilities matters, according to 8 aspects of inclusive development, as you can see on the graphic. So the picture shows that the highest rate is aspect number 8, indicates the organization of persons with disabilities in the village. And the lowest aspect is aspect number 4, that indicates the budget support for persons with disabilities. There are only about 37 of village allocated budget for persons with disabilities. And we also have the best practice. For example, the Panggung Harjo, who has disaggregated data for persons with disabilities. The Sukoharjo region, who established the task force to monitor 150 village and 17 sub-districts. They also have the village regulations related to the persons with disabilities, and also the government of Bulukumba that indicate or involve the persons with disabilities in their criteria for the assistance. Next. So disability inclusive development means ensuring that all phases in the development cycle, from design, budgeting, implementation, until monitoring and evaluation, include a disability dimension, and that are persons with disabilities meaningfully and effectively participating in development process and policies. So first here, the level of understanding from village government implies the way they handle and fulfill the rights of persons with disabilities in the village. The second one, data plays a significant role in enabling the development process. The government and stakeholders can establish the accurate assistance and services through disaggregated data. Third, inclusive planning means that participation of persons with disabilities and organizations into village forum and planning development. And fourth, village may learn the process to be inclusive from the best practices. Next. So the conclusion of this research is the issues of including persons with disabilities into village development is a necessity. The occurrence of pandemic is a momentum to build an inclusive village. Persons with disabilities and organization is positioned or must be positioned as a subject, not an object within the strategy. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, very interesting topic, Bu Martella. Thank you very much. I remind you again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, you can write them down in chat room. Thank you. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our second presenter, Retno Hanani and Yuliana Kristanto from Universitas Diponegoro Semarang. She will deliver a presentation entitled Social Capital and Resource Mobilization During Pandemic, Insight from Jogotongo Program in Central Java. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Retno Hanani. The time is yours, Ibu Retno.
Yeah, thank you very much for the MC. I'm sorry I have to use the screen from my co-presenter, Ibu Yuliana, because I cannot have the background that's been submitted by the what I want to present today is insight from, oh, I'm sorry, but this is not my presentation slides. I hope you can find the correct, okay. My presentation today will discuss about the implementation of a Jogotongo program. This is a very much the backbones of pandemics mitigation policy at the Central Java province. And it's been deemed as one of the best practice policy in regards of coping with the impact of COVID-19 program by mobilizing social capital and community resources at local levels. I hope the organizer have found the correct, yeah. Okay, so maybe we should start again. I'm sorry for the interruption. My name is Retno Hanani. I'm here to present our preliminary result of our research. This research is basically, we hope that we can build this result, the research into a multi-year project looking at the role of social capital and community mobilization during pandemic. Because we think that most of the policy that has been implemented at the social and local level are basically rely on the role of community and individual efforts than simply by utilizing a central government or more centralized policy. And here this project has been implemented by me, Retno Hanani, and my two other colleagues from Universitas Diponegoro. We have Pak Amnizar Kasih Rahman, who is also present at this presentation. I have also Ibu Yuliana Kristanto, who is also present in this presentation. And we hope that we can have insight from all of you, other colleagues in this seminar, and we hope we can have a great discussion afterwards. Okay, next, please. So as we know from the first presentation as well, that COVID pandemic has proven to be a game changer of our time. So much has been impacted by the virus, and it's not only about the health impacts, but we can see that the community relation and social fabrics of our society is also impacted by this virus. And due to its extensive impacts, government, especially in low middle income countries like Indonesia, we are facing great challenges in mitigating the impact of COVID-19. As such, in Indonesia, for example, many of government policies in COVID-19 mitigations rely on the role of local governments. For example, in March 2020, we heard from the President Jokowi that he basically decentralized the policy mitigation on COVID-19 to local governments, while central government play important role in coordinating and giving budget allocation, but most of the implementation of COVID-19 policy is basically will be implemented by local governments. In general, Indonesian government efforts to mitigating the impact of COVID-19 have been criticized for being inadequate, ineffective, and too late. Therefore, we are looking at how the local policy implemented by various local governments has been tackling this issue of COVID-19. Next, please. Theoretically, community-based activities and mobilization of social capital during outbreaks or pandemics like this are considered as positive attributes. But so far, we haven't had any sufficient theoretical discussion on unprecedented pandemics in the modern era like this one, because we learned a lot from the SARS in 2010. But we never heard about community and social capital mobilization theoretical discussion about that from that event. So for this research, we are utilizing the role of community-based activities and mobilization of social capital during disasters and outbreaks from the previous events. The emergence of volunteers and mutual aid initiatives are generally considered as good examples of how government can utilize social capital as source of mitigating impact. Now we are looking at the implementation of Jogotongo program. We utilize discourse network analysis because with the pandemic situation, we cannot directly generating data from the field. So we try to utilize a tool and methodology that can help us to understand how the program is implemented through the news coverage from prominent local newspapers in Central Java. We derive our data from newspaper of Suara Merdeka, Kompas, and we choose Detik.com as a representative of online news coverage from March to July 2020. Next, please. So in terms of methodology, we examine news presented on those two prominent newspapers and one national online news channel from March 2020 to July. The newspapers are Suara Merdeka and Kompas. We choose newspaper because we think that they represent local newspaper and national newspaper which has wide circulation in the whole region of Central Java province as well as at the national level. In order to generate data, we use the source, we utilize discourse network analysis. It's a Java-based software that can explain the affiliation networks from different stakeholders. So we know that what stakeholder says what in terms of policy mitigating the impact of COVID-19 in Central Java. Next, please. Okay, so now we come to the Jogotongo at a glance. I just want to highlight the main content of Jogotongo in terms of policy. Jogotongo was officially launched in mid-May 2020 by the governor of Central
Nggak kedengeran, nggak ada suaranya kamu.
Yeah, sorry for the interruption.
Sorry for the disturbance.
Okay.
Okay, please go ahead, Ibu.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah.
That's
Joko
okay.
Tonggo was launched in mid-May 2020 by Governor of Central Java, Ganjar Pranowo. And it was officially introduced as a program to support government lack of resources to mitigate the impact of COVID-19. So we have to really understand that the rely on community and social capital mobilization is not because the community want to participate, but because the government doesn't have sufficient efforts, sufficient resources to mitigate the great impact of COVID-19 to the community. In order to implement the policy, Governor Ganjar Pranowo and his officials utilize local wisdom such as gotong royong as a tool to make the program more appealing for the community. In terms of the Japanese term of Joko Tonggo itself, it means looking after neighbors. And it has a strong connection with the idea of gotong royong, which has been popular among citizens of Indonesia, as well as policymakers in Indonesia. If you look at the history of policymaking in social policy, for example, the notion of gotong royong is a very prominent concept. The next one, please. This is the idea of Joko Tonggo policy. We can see that Joko Tonggo definitely utilize all the community structure, the community governance structure. For example, they utilize Karang Taruna, they utilize Dasa Wisma as the implementer of this program. And at the same time, they also want to achieve a lot of ambitious program. For example, they want to provide economic reliefs for those who were affected by COVID-19 program. They also want to provide medical and health-related protection for people in the community who is affected by COVID-19. They also want to create some kind of social safety net for the local community. So in that sense, Joko Tonggo has a very wide mission on what they want to achieve. In that sense, Joko Tonggo is very ambitious in terms of its vision and mission as a policy. Next one. Now we moving to the findings of our preliminary research. From the available report that we can derive from the Kompas and then Suara Merdeka and also Detik.com, it was very difficult to trace response from the public. What is available in this news report is only the voice of officials. There is no such thing of voice from the participant itself or the community itself outside of the ceremonies when Joko Tonggo is launched in certain community. So response from public only appears in the news outlet when the government delivers Joko Tonggo assistance kit. So in that sense, the voice of a community only appears when certain official visiting a village or a community giving out the assistance kit, rather than a genuine and more organic way of community involving in this Joko Tonggo policy. We only find minor reporting on community activities, and usually it's only highlight certain activities. For example, when they're handing out masks, when they're handing out sembako and something like that. So it's never about a long-term or some kind of policy approach at the local level. Next one. Now we look at the quantitative data. It's more descriptive data on how Joko Tonggo in the news. Joko Tonggo in the news is surprisingly is mostly reported by Detik.com, which is not the local news or channel. So Detik.com, probably because they have more reporters working in the field, they report more on Jogotongo. While Suara Merdeka, which is actually the local newspaper in Central Java, they have very little news about Jogotongo. They are,
Ibu.
yeah. The next one, please. And if we compare Jogotongo to other keywords, for example, it's also not significantly appears in the news outlet. They are buried in other kind of policy that also implemented at the same time. The next one. Now we look at how we can utilize FIS1 as way to utilize what we call as a discourse network analysis. From the picture, we can see that Jogotongo is a very small policy, is very small keywords, appears among other kind of concepts. And from this picture, we can see that Jogotongo is only appear when Ganjar Pranowo mentioned about it. It's not a genuine conversation among the community itself. And now we reach the conclusion from the findings. The next slide. We can conclude that from this research, it seems that we have difficulties of because we are not hosting our own pictures. So then I can conclude that from what we have done so far, we can see that Jogotongo, even though it has a very ambitious policy objectives, in reality it's not really part of the community conversation. So from this finding, we can see that Jogotongo is probably not a prominent policy in reality. Policymakers themselves, they are often focused on health intervention, such as health anticipation, ban on congregation, curfew, security, emergency efforts, and prevention. And Jogotongo, it appears that it's a top-down policy program, especially from Ganjar Pranowo to the public, rather than as something that...
2 minutes left, Ibu.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for your insight presentation, Ibu Retno. So it is very interesting story from Central Java about the community empowerment, community initiative from the Central Java Society. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our third presenter, Bapak Yoga Mahendra from Universitas.
Do you hear me?
Optimization of mosque-based Posdaya to improve public welfare. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bapak Yoga Mahendra. Time is yours, Bapak Yoga.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Hello, check. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Yoga. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Previously, I would like to thank the HR committee and the moderator. It is a great honor to be able to present my article at the international seminar. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to my presentation today. I'm glad to meet you all. Before starting our presentation today, let me introduce myself. My name is Yoga Mahendra. I'm studying graduate school, Yogyakarta State University. I was born in Kuningan, West Java. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in this presentation, we are going to discuss about the optimization of mosque-based Posdaya to improve public welfare. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yes. Introduction. Community empowerment called pemberdayaan masyarakat or Posdaya emerged as a response to government desire to eradicate poverty and improve the quality of human resource. Skill-based Posdaya is an effort to empower people who use their skill as a place to implement employment program. Baitur Rahman skill-based Posdaya is a response to the social economic problem that exists in the Caledon. Baitur Rahman skill-based Posdaya has several pillars empowerment program on economy, health, and environmental sector. Posdaya is forum for communication, friendship, advocacy, information, and education, as well as forum for activities to strengthen by family function in integrated manner by Suyono 2009. Based on observation and research, so the MSQ financial management runs well and transparent. There are several elements involved the MSQ-based Posdaya management, including takmir or MSQ organizer, Posdaya members, marbot or worker, MSQ, and Posdaya administrator. All elements of the management have active role in the success of the community involvement program. All MSQ-based Posdaya administrator are from the Caledon Village community itself. The majority of residents of Caledon Village make a living as farmers, ranchers, and traders. Our community involvement program are thoroughly socialization to the people of Caledon Village. The founding of MSQ-based Posdaya is a response to the social problem that exists in the Caledon Village because Baitur Rahman was the fight of people before the establishment of Posdaya, so that it was less preference. Besides the socio-economic condition of the community, there were still not good since many people were still relied on their agricultural product and livestock. And many residents often must become agricultural laborers to cover their shortage of income. Therefore, it can be said at the time the welfare of Caledon Village community was still very low. Next slide. Literature review, empowerment as a development strategy. Community empowerment is one the effort to overcome social problem in the community talk a bottom-up approach because practice the main actor are people who must have independence and self-subsistence. According to Manggasi Panggabean research, community empowerment in development, it was explained that by doing community involvement in development, it can provide strategies to achieve the goals and objectives of community development optimally and sustainably, as well as encourage the balance of economic development and long-term social. In this study, the concept of empowerment as a development strategy was applied by a MSQ-based Posdaya institution, which is basically a response to the social problem that exists in the Caledon Village, optimizing function and role of MSQ. According to research conducted by Sukarno El Hasim on MSQ strategy, MSQ strategy in informing the economic community, the MSQ can be placed for Muslim to develop employment activities which have economic value and generate income. Baitur Rahman MSQ is believed to be a strategy place to be center of community activities. However, this is supported by good and integrated MSQ management. The true role of MSQ is not limited to worship, but it must also play a role social, economic, and environmental activities. Therefore, it expected the Baitur Rahman MSQ will be able to provide a benefit to all levels of society, especially the residents around the MSQ. MSQ-based Posdaya as a social institution. According to Sujono Sukanto, the role of social institution is to provide guidance of community members about how they should behave in dealing with social problems. They involve basic needs and maintain integrity and harmony in social life. So, based on Afro research explanation, all social activities empowerment centered at the MSQ have made people aware that through the religious teaching there is wisdom as social capital in arranging harmonization of life. In addition, the heterogeneity that exists in the society can be a positive energy in fostering harmony, peace, and prosperity together. Next slide. Methods. The research used qualitative approach. The study was conducted at the MSQ-based Posdaya and community of Caledon and Subvillage Sukoharjo, Ngaglik, Sleman. Data collection techniques were obtained through interview, observation, and documentation. The data were then validated through data triangulation. The data were analyzed by using Marshall and Haberman. The research conducted an interview with head of Sukarjo village, the head of the Pasdaya, the Takmir of the Mesku, the members of the cooperative, the Mas Posyandu administrator, the livestock group, and Kelidon village communities. Next slide. Next slide, result and discussion. Okay. The reason of Mesku based Pasdaya was formed is that the Baitur Rahman Mesku was once very quick visited by Muslim for worship. This is because there are many perceptions from some of people of Kelidon Hamlet who think that Baitur Rahman Mesku belongs to the foundation. Therefore, several community leaders in Kelidon try to make Baitur Rahman Mesku preferred or many people visit for worship and other activities by creating a social institution called Pasdaya or based on the Mesku. Mesku-based Pasdaya development. Number one, Mesku can have a function as an instrument of community involvement that has a large and strategic influence in improving the quality of life of the community. At the beginning of the establishment of this Pasdaya, it only focused on community involvement in the economic sector by forming Koperasi Al Barakah, which only had 24 members at the time. Over time, this Mesku-based Pasdaya underwent a very significant infrastructure and development with increasingly complete facilities that support employment program, and it currently has employment program in sector of health and economy and environment. Number four, all Mesku-based Pasdaya program are carried around the Mesku area and are fully socialized to the Kelidon village. Next slide. Pasdaya Employment Program, economy sector. Priorities the micro activities in the form of joint ventures within the end are developed into cooperative. Koperasi Al Barakah was formed in June 2009. The number of cooperative income has increased significantly every year. The existence of cooperative is very helpful. It affects the level of economic welfare of cooperative members and administrators. This is confirmed by result interview with 3 cooperative members. According to them, by family economic income has increased since they become the member of cooperative and join the saving and loan program for small business capital micro, such as market, snack, or jajanan pasar. Therefore, it can be concluded that the existence of cooperative is very helpful at it and the effect of level economic welfare of cooperative members and administration. Next slide. Pasdaya Employment Program, health sector. Posyandu for toddlers. The implementation of Posyandu for toddlers is carried out only on the 10th of each month. The Posyandu for toddlers friendly provide service to 46 toddlers. Activities in the program include weighing, giving immunization, and other health checks. The health facilities in toddlers Posyandu is already sufficient and also meets national health standard. This Posyandu is supported by Ngaglik Health Center or Puskesmas. And Posyandu for elderly. The elderly Posyandu was formed in November 2009. It can be said that elderly Posyandu program is success because there were a lot of elderly animals participating in the activities. The elderly health is separate examined. In general, the elderly suffer from Alzheimer's disease, cataract, lack of good nutrition. The elderly Posyandu is supported by Ngaglik Health Center. It is expected by farm Posyandu for toddlers and elderly can help change people mindset related to importance of health for toddlers and elderly. Next slide. Pasdaya Employment Program Environmental Sector. Environmental cleaning activities notably every Sunday morning. The activity was socialized by the Pasdaya official and Mesku Takmir to Kelidon village community to always maintain environmental cleanliness. Sorry, before slide. Andini Lestari.
You have 5 minutes left, ya Pak Yoga?
Yes. Yeah. Since establishment of Pasdaya livestock group has progressed in terms of the number of members of the livestock, the number of livestock group members so far has reached 24 people and they has around 70 cattle and goats. Based on interview with several members of this group, they explained that since establishment of Meskiu Bis Pasdaya, each member apparently has 2 or 4 cattle. So based on this finding, it can be benchmark for success of the Pasdaya Environment Program in environmental sector. Next slide. Conclusion. Optimization of Meskiu Bis Pasdaya in improving public welfare has an important role to encourage effective development of environment program in economic, health, and environmental sector. Meskiu-based community environment program in Klidon Village have some positive result. How positive result? Next slide. Positive result of Baitur Rahman Meskiu-based Pasdaya optimization are environment strategy with a bottom-up program approach to strengthening the spirit of mutual cooperation, self-reliance, and independence in minimizing social problems that exist in the Klidon Village community. Function the Meskiu not only as a center for religious activity, but also for community socio-economic activities. Pasdaya is able to influence the perspective of the community by increasingly their participation in utilizing Pasdaya environment program, service in health, economy, and environmental sector. Next. The community is brave to express ideas of change during the discussion socialization of the Pasdaya environment program. Next slide. The last slide is the community began to assess the importance of maintaining cleanliness and environmental sustainability. The community began to assess the importance of maintaining health by routinely visiting the posyandu for elderly and toddlers. The economic income of cooperative members increased. There is support outside parties such as Sukoharjo Village Government Agri Health Center, private institution, and state university, and there is interest in number of cattle and goats farming there are managed by Pasdaya Livestock Group. That is all my presentation today. Thank you so much for your great attention. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Bapak Yoga. Very interesting story about the Pasdaya, and I think this is an interesting story from Indonesia that there are various best community initiative from religion and also from village, yeah, as Bu Retna present. And then, well, now we move to the 4th presentation, which will be delivered by Dr. Nimade Ariwidyastini from Universitas Pendidikan Ganesha. She will deliver a presentation entitled Women's Economic Empowerment in Post-Conflict Settings, a Pressing Commitment After the COVID-19. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ibu Dr. Nimade Ariwidyastini. The time is yours, Ibu Nimade.
Okay. My paper is Relations Women. Yes. Okay, thank you for EcoSubs for the chance. Thank you for Ristek Berin and AAKI for supporting our research. Yes, Bali has established itself as tourist destination with various forms of mass and alternative tourism development being carried out without knowing that a virus outbreak will occur as it's today. There was never thought that there will be an epidemic that could destroy tourism's life in this world, and yes, Bali also. Okay, this paper, the title is Resilience of Women Tourism Workers During the COVID-19 Pandemic in Bali. Next, please. Yes, the spread of coronavirus, COVID-19, which occurred on the massive and global basis, had the impact on the weakening of economic activity in various sectors, including in tourism. Its movement, the coronavirus has put heavy pressure on the country economic. And Bali also, which is Bali, decides the big industry is tourism. The life of people in Bali who mostly depends their income into tourism industry has suddenly changed as a result of spread of the COVID-19 virus at the end 2019. Slowly, the level tourist arrival began decline at the end of 2019 since November, and in March it's decreased sharply. According in the data, charts 1, the foreign tourist visit to Bali have drastically decreased during COVID-19 pandemic, especially on March. Until now, on March, based on the data, just one tourist feel only 156,000 877 visits. The decline in tourist visit during the COVID-19 pandemic is an impact on the depends of Balinese people on tourism. In fact, their economic condition during the COVID-19 pandemic was due to the sharp decline to the tourist visit to Bali. Please next. Based on interview for some my friends in the which works in hotel, it's a start in July. The occupancy rate was still below 10%. And this morning, I WhatsApp my friends who still UPL unpaid leave in one of 5-star hotel. The hotel where he works, it's not open October, and they will try to open in December because the occupancy rate is still below 20%. It's difficult to them to operate the hotel. Why? Because costs are higher than revenue, so they choose to remain to close. Then this study. So the hotel management took the decision to carry out advanced stage of layoff with hundreds workers, yes, including women hotel staff. In the study are unique things that observed with the massive layoff employees in Bali, especially among women. They try to survive directly by selling domestic needs, maybe for the rituals first. Bali has many rituals. That's influence the people to create the domestic product, producing product that can be sold either directly or online. Yeah, in this case, Balinese women who are affected by COVID-19, they are ability to survive or resilience to come out of the problem they face. Even through the culinary business, they can get additional income to resume their life during the COVID-19 pandemic. Next, please. For my review, I use Bourdieu and then liberal feminism and Talcott Parsons. Social practice Bourdieu, namely for the practice needs habitus, capital, and space in relations of women to keep survive while pandemic are influenced by habitus and capital they have. For the liberal feminism, women have access and opportunity to survive during a pandemic, including doing various creativities by relying on the capital they have. For the Talcott Parsons about a social system, yes, women as a part of the family, which is smallest system in the community and society, in practice have an important role as a mom, especially women in this case as a part of the family, which is a social system, must be able to maintain and exist or pretend and exist their family, including during pandemic COVID-19. Next, please. For the method, this is our studies using ethnography approach as variants of qualitative approach. The ethnography approach we carry out, including entering the lives of women workers in tourism sector and looking at the work process of the habitus, domain, and capital undertaken by women workers in the tourism sector. In the early stage questionnaire, we distribute human workers in tourism sector by using Google Form, then continue to deep interview by using Tremblay methods, which is the selection for informants to be interview has characteristic, including having formal role that enable them to explain the information sought by our research. In this discussion, the findings were analyzed with textual approach using the concept of difference as proposed by Derrida, the construction and the discussion of any method the theories used by eclectic. Next, please. For the profile of working women in the Bali tourism industry. Yes, Bali as tourism destination has various types of tourist facilities with various classes that provide employee opportunities for the community, including women. Tourist destination, travel, hotel, restaurant, and etc. Based on the survey of female workers who are currently experience the impact of the pandemic, 59% of them are hotel workers. Based on the data obtained, women tourism worker as seen in charts above. Women who works in tourism is various field of work between 1 and 10 years. And my last research, the availability of the large number of female candidates who have competence in the tourism sector has an impact the large job opportunities for female graduates. In addition, my research on 2018, the high interest in the women's studies in the tourism sector, giving women access to job opportunities in the tourism sector. In practice, women as a worker in the tourism sector do not differentiate between work position and salary for men, but based on experience, competence, work ability, based on survey given to women worker in tourism sector who are affected by COVID. It is known that most women receive salary between 2 until 5 million per month. Around 42 the total from the total respondents. Even some of them get income above 10 million rupiahs, namely 16.7 of the respondent. In this case, respondent who fill out the questionnaire are work as manager in hotel, sales manager, food and beverage manager, room division manager, who of course receive relatively high salary in accordance with their duties and responsibility. Next, please. The impact of the pandemic of working women in Bali tourism industry. The condition of Bali 2020 is the worst condition compared to when Bali faced terrorist threats in 2002 and 2050, SARS 2003, not like this time, and the eruption Mount Agung on 2070. For this case is very worse. In the fact, the spread of the virus, which has officially announced to have occurred in Indonesia on 2 March 2020, was result in social restriction, implementing on various scale in several regions. Bali, as tourist destination, has experienced a decline in the number of tourist visits since 2019, with the presence of positive confirmed community in Indonesia. This has resulted the cancellation of tourist visits so high. It's increased very sharply for the cancellation of tourists, which is implication to reduce hotel income and inability of hotel to pay the operator, including employee salaries. That's why they have to make a decision, yeah, a bad or good, I don't know. But yeah, 3-level decision, yeah. From for our research, 39 still receive salary with policy of each hotel, 10 until 25% for his or their full salary before, maybe example 10 million. So they just get 150,000 or 1,050,000 or 2,050,500,000 for the salary.
You have 5 minutes left.
Okay, and 26 unpaid leave status will call if the hotel will operate again, and 35 the total respondent has terminated working relationship, PHK. Next, please. The relation of women to tourism worker during the COVID-19 pandemic in Bali. Women as a part of the family, which is the smallest social system in society in practice, have an important role. Women in this case as a part of family, which is a social system, enable herself to maintain existence of their family, including the pandemic. Based on the survey conduct, the ability to survive female workers who are affect the condition of COVID-19 pandemic open our eyes to the potential posed by women. They have specific strategy to overcome the problems they face. Having experience in sales, serving as sales manager, the ability to see to market, to see the market, making her immediately able to develop this domestic product business. Based on survey, most of women, 54.4% choose the develop culinary products. Balinese women have strength to survive and even get out of conditions that were considered have hers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Various efforts are made during pandemic as doing business in person or online, and the culinary business provide additional income for the survive. And special for the research for Professor Nyoman Darmaputra on 2040, who specially research and write about the roles of for Balinese women who develop culinary business, has successfully support sustainable tourism programs. The same things is found in this study. The culinary business has chosen by some female hotel workers who are affected by COVID-19 and have been able to survive difficulties. Next, please. The resilience of female workers working in the tourism sector and affected by COVID-19, most of them work as hotel in various positions. The COVID-19 kind has a negative impact on the hotel revenue, make hotel management make decision to terminate the employee of a relationship. One of who have terminated the employee work relationship trying to develop their domestic product business, which is practiced in still needs by community in Bali for the ritual. Based on the deep interview, it's found the culinary products purchased by women tourism workers affected by COVID-19, traditional snack, side dishes, modern cakes are products most in demand by markets. To reach the markets, they use WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and other social media to sell their culinary product. Next, please. Yes, thank you. I hope tourism will recover and develop in better ways. Thank you.
On-time presentation and very inspiring and interesting presentation. So the last presentation will be delivered by Dr. Ana Belén Trianes Bermudez from the University Institute General Cuchares Mellado Unit, Madrid, Spain. She will deliver a presentation entitled Women's Economic Settings, a Pressing Commitment After the COVID-19. Dr. Ana Belén, the time is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity to EcoSAPS. I'm very happy to be today with you. If we can share the slides, maybe the operator can share. So, yes, thank you very much. So, thank you again for this opportunity. I'm a doctor in peace and international security. I'm very dedicated to women, peace and security. So I will speak about women's economic empowerment in post-conflict settings, a pressing commitment after the COVID-19, if we can go to slide 3, please. I can to the next one, please. So thank you very much, Operator. So I wanted to address in this context several topics, which are gender equality, inclusive economic growth, and resilient societies. I think that this was a relevant paper because we are in the 20th anniversary of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. October is a very important month for this topic. Also, gender equality, human rights and peace are very closely linked. So I mean that armed conflicts used to take place in countries and contexts which suffer high rates of gender inequality. And gender inequality in this context not only affect women and their families, this is a problem for the whole of society and countries, because this is a huge loss of their collective potential for the generations. If we can go to the next one, please. Also, the living conditions of women in post-conflict worsen, both for women and men, but particularly for women, because in this context, women used to suffer pre-conflict legacies of inequalities. I mean, for instance, problems to access to clean water, maybe to property, to education, also maybe to decent employments and land rights. Also, another point of interest is that women usually are considered to be the main carers. So this is a challenge for women's economic empowerment. In this context, the COVID-29 is increasing poverty, insecurity, but also gender inequality, because in this context, women are more likely to be at risk, because the conditions that the bad conditions they were already suffering are worse. So can we go to the next? Thank you very much. Regarding the literature review, this is a summary. Women economic empowerment is a complex concept to define and measure. There is very limited evidence regarding how to better implement women's economic recovery in this context. This is a problem for my research. Also, there is very limited research about which is the impact of microfinance schemes. Also, social and political factors influence women's ability to take part to participate in the economy. For instance, there may be external factors that affect women and men alike. For instance, high rates of unemployment, and also gender-based institutions and norms. Next, please. Also, the literature review says that not all economic growth supports gender equality. For instance, there is a consensus regarding that a structural change is necessary globally. Also, it is required a long-term commitment to benefit not also women's countries, but also host countries when women and refugees. And also, this is women's economic empowerment is both a right and also smart economies. because empowered women are catalyst for multiplying development efforts. And next, please. So regarding methodology, I wanted to highlight that I find when I research about this topic, I find several limitations. For instance, the Women, Peace and Security agenda, also armed conflicts and post-conflict contexts lack systematic and accurate data. This is quite a normal issue because these are very particular contexts. These limitations prevents further inclusions or in the mainstream of the scientific approach. So this is a problem for this kind of research, and also we can find incomplete and politically motivated data. Because of that, the data we found must be considered cautiously. So next, please. Regarding results and discussions, there are several points that I want to highlight. Countries at highest risks and less prepared to deal with this pandemic are also regarding countries affected by post-conflict context. When women are used to be marginalized at all levels, they used to have a weakest structural capacity because these countries must deal with an added effort to deal with this pandemic, and also there are difficulties to. Thank you very much. We need to use best practice and lesson learned from pandemics such as Ebola or Zika. Also, we need to use digital technology and online tools, which is very important for women in this context. Also, we need gender disaggregated data. We can go to the next slide, please, just to finish. Also, budgets for women's economic empowerment lack international funding support. This is a very a key problem, and also long-term needs are always relegated. We need national action plans and accountability tools and that are gender sensitive. And we can go to the next, please. And I'm going to finish in a couple of minutes. It is very important to move beyond the rhetoric of gender mainstreaming and go to the practice. We need advance in the practice level. Mobilize not only women but also to the local community leaders, which is very particular. Women must need to participate in the solutions to the COVID-29, but also to peacemaking and peace building. Also, women's role as income providers used to increase during conflicts, but in the post-conflicts, this does not lead to long-term transformation. And just the last slide, I promise. I find that Future's line of research need to target the most vulnerable groups of women, for instance, widows and their families, ex-combatants, refugees, CDPs, women which are infected by the COVID-29, and also women and girls with disability and other women from minorities. And thank you very much for your time. And thank you.
much for Dr. Ana Belén from Spain. And very well, ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the question and answer session. I got so many questions for the presenters. 3 questions for Ibu Retna, 3 questions for Ibu Nimade, 1 question for Bapak Yoga, and one question for Dr. Ana Belén. So perhaps because we have limited time in this session, so I will read all the questions first, then the presenters can answer all the questions at once. So the first turn, I read the questions, 3 questions for Ibu Retna. The first questions for Ibu Retna from Aryo Gito Ninjatmoko. The question is, as I know, social capital is about building three networks, bonding, bridging, and linking to tackle problems for their community. Does your theory refer to this theory or not? If yes, can you explain that theory? You got a question, Ibu Retna? Okay, and the second question, yeah, you can write it down.
Yeah.
The second question is from Kis Martini. The question is, your research on Jogotongo as a form of social capital is very interesting. With policy practices that utilize local values to deal with the COVID pandemic, I think the Jogotongo policy is a policy that uses a bottom-up approach. Is there any reason you say that this policy is top-down? Okay, you got a question, Ibu? So the third question from Siti Anissa. Question is, your research on the Jogotongo program is very interesting. So, but are there any obstacles from the Jogotongo program and how to overcome them? What do you think whether this program can be applied in other areas in Indonesia? So you got that 3 questions, Ibu?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have maximum 10 minutes to answer the whole question. So time is yours, Ibu Retna.
Yeah, thank you for all the questions, and those questions are very useful for building up our research result and discussion. From what we have so far, we can say that I will start with the question number 2. Why we say that a Jogotongo program is basically a top-down project. Why we argue that Jogotongo is a top-down project is based on what we see from the news coverage. So we didn't have any direct field work in a sense that we didn't interview the beneficiaries of Jogotongo program. We didn't have any interviews with the policymakers themselves. But from what we have so far, we can say that Jogotongo, in terms of the policy planning itself, is solely defined by the policymakers. The beneficiaries and the citizens who are involved in Jogotongo program, they are only involved in the technical implementation of the program. There is no such bottom-up planning at the community level. There is also no news no news coverage in relation to how certain communities planning the implementation of Jogotongo at local levels. That's why even though we see a lot of local values being mobilized, being framed in the Jogotongo program, we can say that this kind of local values are used to legitimize the policy. In reality, Jogotongo program is basically a top-down, which rely on community as a technical sources for implementation. So in that sense, that's why we conclude that Jogotongo is top-down. And the next one, in relation to the theoretical discussion, in our research, it's a multi-year project. We really want to utilize this bridging, bonding, and linking. But so far, we can say that it's very difficult to ask such questions utilizing discourse network analysis. What we can say that among stakeholders, linking are certainly there. But what kind of quality in this kind of form, in the linking form that stated in the implementation of Jogotongo, we cannot say it yet. The linking part is mostly between the social affairs office, Dinas Sosial, to the community. So it's a very one-way kind of linking between policy implementer and community as a passive beneficiaries. So that's what we can say at the moment about the linking part of this Jogotongo program. But we are planning to utilize another tool because at the moment we don't use direct field work at least until January, until we find that it's quite safe to do real observation in the field and direct interviews with the beneficiaries, especially. We can conclude that the low quality of social capital is being applied at the moment. And yeah, and the next question is related to whether it's possible to apply this kind of a project in other areas. I think it's relying on community has been implemented in different areas, but Jogotongo is particularly interesting because it's the only program where the state formalized what has been available in the community. So in that sense, Jogotongo is the only policy that we know so far, especially in the island of Java, that formalize this kind of social norms and social mutual help that already established in the community. And of course, back to the second question, it doesn't mean that it has always bottom up. Sometimes, if we look at the history of gotong royong and how it politicized in Indonesian discourse of development, we can see that gotong royong can be utilized to support a very top-down approach during the New Order, for example. So that's the answer from us, and thank you very much for all the answers. And I think it will be very useful for our discussion later on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ibu Retna. So now the turn is for Ibu Martella Rivera. Ibu Martella, you have 3 questions. The first question is from Asia Putri. The question is, as stated in the discussion before, the marginalization of vulnerable groups create a gap in social and economic opportunities, which also contribute to the lack of the involvement of PWD in COVID-19 response. What would be the best way or the best practice to minimize this marginalization of the vulnerable groups? The second question is from Ibu Retna Hanani. So the question is question related to the methodology. You mentioned that you apply ethnographic approach, but at the same time, you mentioned using questionnaire.
I'm sorry, that's my question to
Ibu Made. Yes.
Made.
From Ibu Retna to Ibu Made. Okay. Ibu Made, so you mentioned that you apply ethnographic approach, but at the same time you mentioned using questionnaire. Could you explain the relationship between these 2 methods? This is the second question. The third question from Ibu Made, from Asia Putri. As we all know, in the 4th wave, or some opinion even saying that it is even in the 5th wave of feminism, does this research also adhere to the development of the feminism wave, or simply stick to the basic principle of feminism? Okay, you got that questions Ibu Made?
Yes.
Yeah. Ibu Made?
Sorry, who's gonna answer first? Because the first question is mine, and then the rest of the questions maybe for Ibu Made. So.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Ibu Martela ya? Oh, sorry.
So yeah, one question for me.
Okay, one
and
question
rest
for
of the
Ibu
question for
Martela. So
Ibu
sorry,
Made. No worries.
I said yes. Sure. Your turn, Ibu
Okay.
Martela. So, okay.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Misha, for the question. So fundamentally, three principles of disability inclusive development is accessibility, participation, and non-discrimination. So as I already mentioned on my third slide, disability inclusive development conducted with a twin track approach, mainstreaming and affirmative action. Mainstreaming means including persons with disabilities in development program and policy, also for the regulations that support their rights. In concrete, if you want to know deeper about how the regulations support the inclusive village, you can open the Minister of Village Regulations number 13 of 2020. It's the newest regulation from the Ministry of Village that stated the inclusive village development. So the village, sorry?
Okay, go ahead, Ibu Martela.
Sorry, okay. So the newest village regulations stated that the village fund can be used for the basic service activities for marginalized and vulnerable groups, including persons with disabilities, organizing citizen forum, providing legal assistance, strengthening local wisdom for the disabled, and also the other activities towards inclusive village. Practically, those policies must be turned into practice. For example, sorry, it's for
Okay.
okay.
Go ahead, Ibu Martela.
Okay, so practically those policies must be turned into practice. For example, if we look at the data in April 2020, the involvement of marginal groups in manpower intensive project financed in cash by Village Fund, or we know as PKTD, Program Karya Tunai Desa, it was only 1% marginalized involvement in that program. So with the newest policy, whether it's national, regular, and also the regional and village policy, the percentage must be increased. And the second one is affirmative action that can be seen in several villages that initiated the disability targeted program. For example, on my slides, I mentioned the 3 best practices in villages. They have partners with disabled people organization or DPOs, and also the donors, for example, the program Peduli from Australia, to arrange disaggregated data. And also there are several villages that made and deliver entrepreneurship program for disability. I think that's all for the question from Ms. Meisha. Thank you.
So we move to the Ibu Nimade. Sorry, I have already read your question previously. So you got our question, or I have to read the question again? You got it, all the question, Ibu?
Yes.
If you got it, please answer the question. Is the maximum of 10 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Please,
yes.
Ibu.
Thank you, Bu Retno, for your question. Yes. Why I use ethnography approach, and then I use questionnaire too. Yes. I already explained this study use ethnography approach as a variance of qualitative approach, which the ethnography approach is empirically the theory and theoretical approach that aims to obtain in-depth description and analyze of the culture based in intensive field research. I use Barker's theory. In this study, the ethnographic approach was carried out, including we have to enter the life of the woman who works in tourism, and then looking the works process, their habitus, domains, and capital that undertaken by women workers in tourism. In this early stage, before in-depth interview, we conduct with individuals selected by use the Tremblay method by Marshall, which is I read the article Marshall and on 19 and 1906, which questionnaire were distributed to women workers in tourism by Google Form, and then we have to choose the selected informant. Based on the data, interviews are conducted to collaborate the data generated by means of questionnaire, which is the Marshall is selection the informant to be interviewed has characteristic including having a formal role that enable them to explain the information that we search, that's the research search, has a knowledge in accordance with the required data, can communicate their knowledge in a way that they can be understood by the interviewer. And the key informants that we choose by selecting the Google form must be objective and undisturbed. In this discussion, the findings were analyzed with textual approach using by different Derrida, and this discussion animator, the theorists use eclectic. This research is also the construction method. I read Barry. Bukunya Barry, the deconstruction is a way of reading text out, habit of reading text against itself that get from deep interview. Maybe, yes, I collaborate. Thank you. And for the second question from
the Ibu Retna.
Yes.
From Malaysia, Putri.
Okay, yes.
Tadi saya lihat di map kemungkinan bisa sampai jam 1 lebih itu.
Okay, yes, I simply stick to the basic principle of feminism, which is women have equality access to opportunities, try to eliminate gender-related things, behavior. This condition is interesting to be studied critically, considering the idea of Marxist feminism theory that economic base of the family not only provide an opportunity for family to maintain its extent, but also create a power structure. This is means that who occupies the upper class position in family, which is also means who is in power, whether father or mother, is very much determined by who control the economic base. In this context, it can be since whether if the wife is able to earn money, even is able to support the family more than her husband, then the wife will get the equal position when even the higher position in powers and structure of family. The question, we have to question the position of the wife is important given to the Marxist feminism. Either the social extent determines self-consciousness. Women cannot form themselves to socio-economic. They are still depends on men. Yeah. To understand why women are oppressed, we must analyze the relationship between women's work status and the image of herself. I use Rivia 2003. Yes. If the opposite happens, namely the wife works and also handles other jobs, resulting on the double income pattern, then the question arises whether an income received by the wife strengthen her position in the family. But in this edition, can the wife reserve the power structure in family that is instead a husband power or wife? That's the question. But in this study, women just try to maintain the or survive their family from a pandemic. So yeah. which is women have equal access to opportunity to keep their social system to or extend or resilience their family, maybe like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibu Made. We move to the question for Mr. Pak Yoga and Dr. Anna. There are two questions, one question each. That for Pak Yoga, question from Bapak Lukas is Pandriarno. Question, your research is interesting. Would you like to tell us what is or is there any rule of religious teaching on that three empowerment subject or areas? And for Dr. Anna, from Bapak Lukas also, in your presentation, mention incomplete and politically data on your methodology. Would you like to elaborate more in this end? Did you face this problem? So now the turn is for Pak Yoga to answer the question. Please,
Yes.
time is yours, Pak Yoga.
Yes, thank you so much, my moderator. Thank you for Bapak Lukas Ispandriarno. My answer, the purpose of this MSQ-based Pasdaya was formed in minimize social problem in the Klidon Hamlet community. The MSQ-based Pasdaya as social institution basically has the duty to provide guidance to community members about they should behave in dealing with existing social problem. But here the research focus more on the role of Pasdaya to improving the quality of life of community in its spiritual aspect by offering several Pasdaya support programs such as recitation on Thursday night and Ahad, pengajian Kamis Pon dan pengajian Ahad itu, Arabic language studies and other Islamic studies. The formation of this program aims to make the people of Klidon Hamlets experience and increase in the quality of their devotion. The values of Islamic values in implement its post-day program are expected to be able to change the patterns of life the Klidon Hamlet to make them more religious. Based on this MSQ-based post-day has tried to improve the quality of life the community in spiritual aspect by trying to improve the moral, ethic, views, and mindset of the people. Klidon Hamlet about the importance of understanding Islam is very first day program activity. Regarding the role of religious teaching in environment program Pasdaya to carry out recitation activities on pengajian Ahad dan Kamis Pon which are usually attended by around 30 or 50 congregants. Apart from Arabic language recitation and this Baitur Rahman Masjid, there is TPA, Taman Pengajian Al-Quran. This is my answer.
Pak Yoga, now your turn, Ibu Dr. Anna Belland. Please answer the question from Pak Lukas.
Okay, thank you for your question. This is regarding incomplete and politically motivated data. This is a very difficult question. How did I face to deal with this problem? I have a hard work to do ahead with this because there is a lack of literature in this issue. There is a lack of gender disaggregated data. I try to look for the most impartial source, but I find also social norms also in this context. We are speaking about fragile state, fragile context, which are affected by post-conflict, by insecurity. It is really difficult or impossible to do surveys to women, to ask women maybe they don't want to be economically empowered. But also this concept, I have a really hard work to do ahead, because this concept, women's economic empowerment in general, is very difficult to define, also to contextualize. We have to deal with different traditions or social norms. Also, I thought that this could be maybe an interesting paper, because this month in October we are commemorating the 20th anniversary of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda around the world. This agenda was adopted because there is a big lack of women's leadership in conflicts and post-conflict context regarding economy, society, and also the political context. For instance, I'm speaking about the difficulty of women to participate in peace processes, but also it is a general lack of leadership, because women are not given the voice to participate in social economy, in the policies, in the implementation. So I think that women must be given the voice to decide how to implement the solutions to the COVID, but also to the peace building and peacemaking processes. And this is a global question. It's about women leadership in general. So I don't know, Lucas Ispandiano, if this is a good response.
Much for your explanation, Ibu Ana, and thank you very much again for all the questions. I think we have to stop our sessions. I believe that the discussion can enrich our knowledge and insight about how we have to be ready and empowered in the world that people call it the disruptive era. From the presentation here, we'll learn a lot about various efforts taken by communities to be resilient and adaptive to many challenges we will potentially face now and the future. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, we come to the end of the session. We would like to say thanks again for all the presenters for their informative, interesting talk, and to audience for your active participation. Hopefully, the presentation will be beneficial for everybody. So please give applause for the presenters and for you all. Thank you very much again from the committee. But before I close the session, please for all audiences to turn on the camera and give your best smiles. So we will have photo sessions. Okay, please turn on your camera and give your best smiles. Okay. One, I will count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, please turn on your camera. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Please raise your hand. Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Once again, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you in our next conference. Good afternoon, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, that was the panel session for today. Thank you for all the participants, all presenters, and thank you very much for Honorable Dr. Yuyun Sunesti, GD SOS MA, and Honorable Nora Nailul Amal as SOS MLMED honors. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move to the next session, we would like to invite you all to have a praying break. The next agenda will start promptly after praying break at 1 p.m. Thank you.